Alright, so we learned how to do hyperbolas yesterday or in the last video. So now we're going to keep doing hyperbolas. There's just going to be a few things that change. We might have multiple asymptotes, or we might have a hyperbola that has this plus k. So yesterday we had that ax plus b or minus b over cx minus d. Now the new thing is this plus k here. All that's going to change is the horizontal asymptote. So let's kind of review here. We had two branches. That's our two graphs. So we have our two graphs. That's a basic hyperbola. Again, if a is positive, then it looks like graph 1. If a is negative, it looks like graph 2. Our vertical asymptote, we're going to set the denominator equal to 0 and solve. So that was the vertical asymptote we did yesterday. Set denominator equal to 0 and solve. Now the horizontal asymptote, before that was our ratio of a to b or a to c. Now it's y equals k. So whatever that k is, that is going to be our asymptote. Right? So let's do two examples here. You'll try two examples on your own. Again, same basic concept. We're going to create a table of values using 4 points to the left and right of the vertical asymptotes. Alright, so we need to find the vertical asymptote. Again, vertical asymptote, denominator equal to 0. So x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3, x equals 3. Remember that the domain cannot cross that asymptote. So we've got negative infinity to 3, non-inclusive, 3 to infinity. Right, now we need our horizontal asymptote. Well, again, horizontal asymptote, y equals k. Well, what's k? Negative 2. So y equals negative 2. Alright, let's go ahead and actually graph that asymptote x equals 3. So go to 3, and it's vertical, straight up and down. Y equals negative 2, so we go to negative 2. That's our horizontal asymptote. So draw that in place. Range is everything but the asymptote, the horizontal. So negative, oops, I need purple here. Negative infinity to 2, union negative 2 to infinity. Y-intercept, put in 0. We get negative 5 halves minus 2. We get, it's going to be negative 1/3. Or putting in negative 0.33 repeating. That's fine too. So x equals 3, we can put that in our center of our table again. Again, we're not actually going to graph that point, but we need 4 to the left, 4 to the right. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 1, 0, negative 1. So we need our graphing calculator here so that we can graph it. And we got to be careful entering this. Y equals, we need negative 5. Now I'm going to put parentheses around this whole entire thing up here. So parentheses, negative 5 in the top, divided by, I've got parentheses around x minus 3, so x minus 3, 2 sets of parentheses closing it out. Now I'm subtracting 2 from the whole entire equation, and we can get the graph of it here. But again, I want points, so let's go to the table. I'm starting at negative 1. Negative 1, I got negative 0.75. 0, that was where I got my negative 0.33 from. I'm going to go down to 1, I've got 0.5. 2, 3. Error, again, if you want to put error in there, you can, but you don't have to. Negative 7. Negative 4.5. Negative 3.66, negative 3.25. Alright, so let's plot some of those and get that general shape that was there. So 2, 3. So I need 2. I'm up to 3. 1.5. 0, negative 1/3. And going down. So you can kind of see how it's approaching the asymptote up here. And it's starting to approach the asymptote down there. 4, negative 7. So go down. 5, negative 4.5. 3.66, and again we're starting to get that curve. 7, negative 3.25. So we can kind of get that curve in there, approaching the asymptote but not crossing it. Alright, so again, same basic skills as yesterday. The only thing that's going to change now is example 2 is a little bit different because we've got squared down here. Well, again, we take our denominator, set it equal to 0. So x squared equals, x squared minus 4 equals 0. Well, x squared equals 4 then. Now when you take the square root, we've got x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2. There are 2 asymptotes here. So you got to graph both of them at negative 2 and at positive 2. Which means I have 2 values I can't have in the domain. So negative infinity, negative 2. Pick up again at negative 2, go to positive 2, and pick up again at 2, go to infinity. Horizontal asymptote. Well, again, the numerator is bigger. This looks like my a over x minus hk, but there's no k here. Well, if there's no k, it's like saying, hey, I'm adding 0. So your horizontal is, let me keep consistent with color, y equals 0. So negative infinity, 0, union 0 to infinity. Every once in a while you'll cross y equals 0, but we're not going to talk about that unique case here. The way I graph this is I kind of go slightly above the axis so that I can see I put tick marks there for that asymptote. Or if you use a different color, that will help too. And lastly, your y-intercept. Well, we'll cover that with the table, but 0, put 0 in, we get 3/4, negative 3/4. Well, how do I work a table with asymptotes when there's 2? Well, put your negative 2 here, leave 2 spaces, put 2. Or, again, you can kind of extend your table, get a few more values in there. That's what I would ideally do, is get a few more values than this table allows you to. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Let's see, I need y equals 3 divided by quantity x squared minus 4. I need to graph that. Well, one, I can look at the graph to kind of see, hey, what's it going to look like? I get a shape. This is a little bit different than what we're used to. So let's go to our table. I need to go above negative 2, so I need negative 3, negative 4, negative 1, 0, and I'd probably put 1 in here too. So I'm going to put off to the side 1, comma, negative 1. Alright, so we need negative 4, so let's go up, 0.25, negative 3, 0.6. Again, that's that error value. We don't have that. We're not graphing it. Negative 1, 0, negative 0.75, 2, we're not graphing. I added in a point there. And then we've got 3, 4, 5. So down we go, 0.6, 0.25, and 0.14. So let's plot some of those. Negative 4 at 0.25, so I'm at 1/4. -3, I'm at 0.6, so about 2/3. Again, if we keep going and we look at that graph, we're going to kind of keep approaching up here. So I'm going to approach that asymptote, approach that asymptote. -1, -1, 0, -3/4, 1, -1. You can kind of see how there's a parabola shape going on here. So I'm going to go start down, go up, hit that maximum, and get the shape. So again, you might need to test a few more points to get the shape inside there. And finally, we need 3.6. So 3, 4, we're going closer to that asymptote. So again, go up towards the asymptote and go down approaching the asymptote. And as always, you can hit graph. Go ahead, check. Oh, hey, they look pretty close to each other. Alright, so here's what I'm going to tell you. On your second page, you need to try this. So you try. And you need to try the second one on here too, this one. So you try. And you can do a big, hey, I don't care about this one. So cross that out. You don't need to do that one. So these two you should do, bring to class, and we can start there. Alright? That is all for this topic.